All right, Coach, another good week for the Rail Splitters. You went over to Anderson last night and come away with an 88-58 victory. The big story out of that game was it obviously is a sack record, 30th consecutive conference victory. But let's talk about the actual contents of the game. Struggled offensively in the first half and came in and really blew things open in the second half. What did you see from your team last night?
Well, I thought first half we obviously just missed shots. Some of that credit to Anderson. I thought they guarded us okay, and some of that was just getting good looks and not knocking them down, which is going to happen. You're not going to shoot the ball at a high level, on a night in, night out basis. I told the guys at halftime, as long as we were generating good shots, we have good shooters. We just got to keep shooting them with confidence and know they'll go in. I think we went into that game leading the country in 3-point percentage, and I'm sure we're not anymore after last night. But 3 for 19 in the first half from three. But I thought we did a fairly good job of not letting that bleed into our defense and not losing intensity or focus on that end. 35-27 at the half, and I thought second half we didn't necessarily get better shots. We made some more shots. Our ball movement was a little bit better. Our rhythm was a little bit better. That's the thing we talked about at halftime as well, was that we were getting, from a shot spectrum standpoint, a shot analytics standpoint, we're getting shots that we would probably quantify as green and say those are good shots. But I didn't think we had great rhythm. They weren't off, paint touches. They weren't off rim attacks. There wasn't a lot of ball movement side to side. We were able to get some looks from three just off perimeter ball movement, and sometimes those are not as good as coming off and what precedes a paint attack, where our paint attack precedes it. We get in the lane, make a play, and we had some of those in the second half. We got multiple paint attacks. Those threes have a better chance to me of going in, but we kept firing. We shot 38 of them, I think, and 19 in each half, but second half we made 8, and again, I thought we had a little better rhythm second half offensively, but I thought for the most part not perfect. I thought Anderson probably we did a decent job guarding them, and then they struggled to make some shots that they probably normally make, and they're playing shorthanded without Sean, and they lost Howard early in the game, and so it was a good win. Proud of our guys. Again, I thought we showed some fight, showed some competitiveness. We guarded them fairly well, and they again I thought probably had a night shooting it where when they did get good looks, they didn't go in. We weren't perfect by any stretch defensively, but it was an improvement over our defensive effort of the previous week.
When after the game, when me and you talked, you said that you were really happy that you had that kind of game. The last two games prior to that one was one where you really relied on offense to win the game. Last night, offense didn't come as easy, and you said, and you had to kind of hang your hat on defensively and on the boards. Why was that a game that you wanted to have happen at that point in the season?
Well, I think as a coach, you're always more excited about games that you win on defense and rebounding and taking care of the ball, because you think that translates more in giving you a chance to win. In the postseason, it's hard to win in the postseason. It's hard to win anytime when you're a team where your identity's tied up in making jump shots, and that's how you're going to win games, because there's going to be a lot of nights like last night where jump shots don't go in, and what do you do? And I thought last week, Mars Hill and Newberry, we really struggled to guard. We didn't, from a principle standpoint, habit standpoint, our transition defense, our defense at the point of attack, our positioning, in the gaps. I mean, it was pretty poor across the board. And so I thought last night, because we struggled to shoot, we got to halftime up 8, even though we had shot, I think, in the mid-30s, I think 36%. We had obviously gone 3 for 19 from 3. But as we talked about, we had won the possession game, 36 attempts to their 21 attempts. I think they had 12 turnovers at half. We had 3 or 4, and we had done a good job of taking care of the ball. We had rebounded the ball fairly well on the defensive glass, and so we were giving ourselves opportunities. And as a coach, you recognize those things have a better chance of translating into, when it matters most in March. If you win games based on, obviously, your defense, your rebounding, taking care of the ball, shot selection, those things translate into the postseason. So that as a coach, that certainly is a game where you need games like that, where you got to kind of grind it out, and you got to see if your guys are mentally tough enough to absorb a bad night offensively and not deflate, because we've been so sound and so solid offensively. Sometimes that gives you a false sense of security on the other end of the floor. And so now moving forward, I'd like to play a complete game, which we haven't had in a while. But last night I feel better leaving last night than I did in either of the games the previous week.
Well, and I know this has been something that's been going on, obviously, since January of last year. But The team went where no other SAC team has gone before, 30 consecutive SAC wins, dating back to January 2017. So, what does that say about this team that they were able to do that and this streak is still going?
Well, I think we hadn't even talked about it until pregame yesterday was the first time that I addressed it with them, and told them, going through it the first time, I think we won 29 straight in 14, 15, 15, 6. Remember that? And in that year, 22-0, and thinking like that's never, that's just impossible, insane that could even happen, and to go 22-0 in a league and to win 29 straight conference games and all that, and so to be a part of it once, you're just like wow, and something that'll be really hard for anybody else to ever do that. I can't even imagine. And then come back and we have some guys that were obviously particular to this team. We have some guys that obviously get credit from last year because a lot of half that streak was really almost half was last year. And then we got a number of guys that kind of bridge both years. But it says a lot about, I think, a variety of things. And it's not something that we talked about 1 second prior to pregame yesterday in terms of, hey, having a chance to accomplish something pretty special and don't waste the opportunity. But, I think when you look at our players, we've talked about it, you got to have the players win games. That's the most important piece of any success of any team is the players. They're the ones who got to go out and perform. They're the ones who got to go out and do all the work. And we've been really fortunate to have talented guys, but I think guys that are really committed, and I mean committed in a holistic way, in terms of what they do, obviously on the court, what they do away from the court, the effort and focus and attention that they pay to trying to become the very best they can be. And we demand a lot of them, and they obviously, the guys that have really been successful here meet those demands on a day-to-day basis, and they're fully committed to trying to be the best they can be individually and us collectively, and that's a big piece of it. And then the competitive character. For our guys, I hold that in the highest of esteem. I mean, I really do. We have a bunch of guys that I really admire in terms of their competitive character, because when you're in the situation we've been in, it's not particular this year, only the last few years, you're going to get everybody's absolute best shot. You're going to have to sit there and take it and absorb it and find a way to get the job done when other teams are at their absolute best in terms of their focus, their preparation, their crowd, whatever the case may be, is always at its best when we're playing. So for guys to be able to do that and sit there and have the competitive character to prepare well and try to go out and perform at their highest level on a night-in, night-out basis, again, I hold our guys' competitive character in the highest of esteem. And then I think you got to be lucky. There's been a bunch of games in this streak, and if you go back to the previous, I don't remember them all. I'm getting old, but in this streak particularly, a lot of one-possession games. We've had a couple of those with Queens, and then you look at Newberry being down 23 last year. There's been a lot of games that could have gone either way, and we've been on the fortunate side of that. But I will say this, to do 30 in a row in any league is pretty remarkable. To do it in a league like ours, where you have this year, you got 3 teams in the national poll all year long, 2 right now ranked number 1 and number 2 in the nation. You got last year 3 teams that made the NCAA tournament and 2 teams that played for the regional title, and us in Queens. And the year before, you got 4 teams in the NCAA tournament, and the entire regional semifinal was all SAC schools. So it's not like you're doing it in a league that's not unbelievably competitive. So I think that makes it even more impressive in terms of what our guys have accomplished. But I would say the follow-up to that is moving forward, they know and we know it means absolutely nothing in terms of, what we got to do and what happens on Saturday and what is going to happen when we step on the court at Cuddy Arena at 4 o'clock. We got to prepare unbelievably well and then go out and perform at a high level, because it means nothing. That 30-game winning streak, whatever, means nothing come Saturday. Each game's its own mosaic. And you got to go back, start from scratch, prepare as well as you can, then go out and perform at the highest level possible. And so we have to leave that alone. The worst thing you can do is, as a team is think that previous success is going to kind of lead to success in the future. And certainly we've done a good job of that so far, but hopefully we can continue as we move forward into this week.
Well, you're really hitting the home stretch of the season now. 5 games left in the regular season, and like you already alluded to, heading to Wingate on Saturday to wrap up a short 2-game road trip. So what's it going to take? What is the challenge of going over to Wingate, and what's it going to take to come out with a victory?
Well, they're solidly in 4th place. Really had a couple games that could have gone either way, that could have put them even higher than that. I think when you go and you play Wingate, you start off with the fact that they got one of the best coaches around in Brian Good. His teams are always, so sound and so tough on both sides of the ball. Brian does as good a job as any coach I've coached against. I mean that sincerely. He's fantastic. He's got a great program. They've been in the NCAA tournament on a consistent basis. They've got a team that's dealt with a lot of injuries and is still, like I said, and then right now would host a home game in the conference tournament. They're fourth in the league, and he's adaptable. The game here, I thought, really took the air out of the ball, slowed it down. Really try to muddy the tracks in terms of we want to get up and play at a high pace, at a fast tempo. They took the air out of the ball, made things difficult. I thought we had to guard them deep into the shot clocks. We got to go in there and we've got to be disciplined. Certainly, it's much easier to slow somebody down than it is to speed somebody up. We're not a team that presses and traps and goes crazy. So we got to adjust to the pace. It's going to be a slower game, more of a grinder. We've got to be disciplined enough to defend deep in the shot clock. They have a bunch of guys that can really attack off the bounce. We've got to be terrific in terms of guarding the dribble, in terms of not just the guy guarding the ball, but the guys one pass away, positionally building that wall and being in our gaps and active. Our help's got to be good, rotations, and then offensively, they're terrific. They mix. They play a lot more zone than they have previously this year, but they mix man zone. We got to attack those well, execute at a high level, and I'm sure it'll be a great atmosphere. With going in with everything. Anytime you go in as with some of the streak or being number one in the country is going to be heightened attention, focus from all the outside stuff. So we have to embrace that, acknowledge it, be ready for it, and have to play our best game on Saturday to have a chance to win down there in what I'm sure will be a really tough environment against an excellent basketball team.